Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com, and this is a tutorial on finding a job as a software developer, a computer programmer. And the reason I'm making this video is that since I've been making videos about Java programming, a lot of people have asked me, how can I find a job as a computer programmer? And so I thought I'd put the kind of main stuff that I've gathered over the years into this video and give you some tips about it. So the first question that people often ask is, do I need a degree to get a job as a software developer? Do I need a degree in computer programming? And the answer to that is definitely no, you don't. I don't have a degree in computer programming, and it's never held me back. If you do have one, it's going to help you tremendously. It'll make things a lot easier, and employers may well take you a little more seriously. But you don't need a degree in software development to get a job as a software developer. And I've also worked with people who don't have degrees at all, and so it's less common because what tends to happen is that people tend to get degrees, at least this is in the UK and the US I suppose, and then they sort of look around for what they can do, and they're interested in computer programming, so they get a job as a developer. So most people tend to have degrees in the industry, but there are a lot of people who don't have any degree of any kind at all, so it's not a necessity. And by the way, I should mention that this tutorial, it's going to be a little bit centered around the UK, Western Europe, USA and Eastern Europe, because these are the places that I'm most familiar with. But if you're from somewhere else in the world, then I hope you'll still find some useful tips in here. So you don't need a degree, but it certainly helps. Do I need experience? This again is a common question, and of course the answer is no, but experience is the big hurdle that you need to get over in order to get a job as a software developer. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my own experience later on in this video. But I got a job as a software developer originally with no commercial experience whatsoever, no proper experience. And I did have a degree, but it was a degree in science, and it was the worst grade of degree that you can possibly get and still call it a degree. So you don't absolutely need experience, but it really helps. And if you don't have any experience and you want to get a job as a software developer, there's a bunch of things that you can do that will help. And the simplest thing is just, firstly, let's say you are going to need to know how to write software. That's the first thing to say, because trainee positions, even if you can find them, and they are probably few and far between, it will just give you a huge advantage over other applicants if you already know some computer programming. So that's the first step. Learn how to program computers. And if you don't know, then you can find a sort of semi-complete, free, extensive video tutorial series on www.caveofprogramming.com, and I'll give you that URL a bit later as well, and that's my website. And there's also a bunch of videos on there. This is a little promotion, if you don't mind, for my other courses, at least one of which is free and some are paid on like web development and Android and stuff like that. So first, learn to program computers really well, if you can, as well as you can anyway. And it is difficult at first, but if you hang in there, you'll get the hang of it. And it will help if you've written some computer programs of some kind yourself, even if it's something you can take in on like a pen drive and show to people. And I remember when I first started applying for jobs, it took me a while. I managed to get a few interviews by moving to a place where the IT industry was thriving. That was Cambridge, UK. And I started to get a few interviews, and I used to take a program that I'd written with me, like a little Fractal program, to show people, and that was all I had. And I could talk about other programs that I'd tried to write, even if they weren't very good when I'd written them, and that was something. If you can write programs and sell them, that's fantastic, because that is commercial experience of some kind. You know, it is technically commercial experience, and that's what employees are always looking for, commercial experience, and that's the barrier to get over. So again, you don't absolutely need it, but if you can get it, even by selling little bits of your own software, even if you're selling some kind of little thing that you wrote using PayPal and your own primitive website for like $1 or something a time, a copy, then that is some commercial experience, and it's better than nothing. In fact, it looks really great on your CV. Other things you can do to get experience is, let's go to a browser here. There are a bunch of sites, like for example www.guru.com, and these are places where you can bid for contracts, you can bid for work that people want doing. And if you're from somewhere other, if you're from a Western European country, or you're from the USA, then you tend to find people from other parts of the world where the economy is not so good undercutting you with the bids. So it's not so easy to make a living on here, I think. I think people spend a lot of time bidding if they want to make a living, and nevertheless some people even in the USA do make a really good living on here by being very busy. And it's useful for you if you want to get a job, because if you can get any kind of paid work at all, even some small thing like correcting a WordPress site or writing a little, I don't know, Python script or something, then it's really better than nothing. It's some commercial experience that looks great on your CV. So anything you can do that you could call commercial that you get paid for is really good. And if you can't find anything to do, then even just having some software that you've written that people can find on a website or something is still better than nothing. And one thing that I haven't actually written down here, but I should have said, is make sure you've got a good CV. Make sure, even if your CV has no relevant experience on it, make sure it's nicely formatted. List what you consider to be your key skills, the things that you've learnt about computers and programming. Write down any computer programming that you've done, and put down anything that might sound good on that CV, as long as it's true. Don't lie on your CV. But if there's anything you've done that can sound good, even if it's quirky, then put it on the CV. And I've put some really eccentric stuff in the past on my CV, and I've got interviews sometimes as a result of this. So as I'll explain shortly, I actually lived in a tent once for more than a year, and I put that on my CV under like hobbies and interests, and I actually got interviews because people were just curious to meet the person who lived in a tent. So anything you can put on that makes you look good, like if you were head of some society, or I don't know, you worked in some job, even if it's nothing to do with computer programming, but try to make it sound good and put it on your CV, and make sure it's nicely formatted, and emphasize the software skills that you've acquired from just doing stuff at home, and that will all help. Because this is the barrier, this is a key barrier that you will have to get over, your lack of experience in getting a job if you haven't got any experience. And if you have, then you're singing, because as soon as you've got experience, then just by sticking in there and being persistent and possibly being prepared to move, then you should be able to get a job, I should think. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. I don't know what I'm doing here. Here we go. Okay, so do I need experience? Basically no, but it helps. And now I come to a strategy that I've kind of developed over the years. I worked firstly as a permanent person, but and I held one job for like 6 years before I got tired of it and quit it for another job. But I used to go from job to job because I could get more money by going to a different job, and I just love change personally. And after that I became a contractor, so I've applied for a lot of different jobs, and I've got a lot of different jobs, and I've worked successfully for increasing amounts of money in a long series of jobs. And over the years I developed kind of a strategy that I would apply when I needed a job. And you need all the things that I said. So obviously make sure you've got a good CV, that's really key. and put anything on it that you possibly can. And once you've done that, it's going to take you, it would take me from start to finish, typically 4, 5, 6 weeks, something like that, to find a job, usually. And I'm prepared to move anywhere, or I was. Now I work for myself. So if you've got anything that counts against you, like you're not prepared to move, or you don't have experience, it could take longer, certainly. But the strategy that I'm about to give you should help you in general. And my strategy is pretty simple, and it just centers around using jobserve.com. Let's go to a browser here, and if you're in a different country where jobserve.com doesn't have jobs, although I think it's pretty international, then you might want to look at a similar job site in your country. I'm not familiar with too many of them. But if you go to www.jobserve.com, and this is certainly good for the UK and the US, and there are definitely jobs in here in, for example, Germany. I've seen jobs, and the Netherlands as well, probably other countries in Europe, I don't know. I'm not sure about India and places like that, although I suspect they're in here, and we could search and probably some stuff would come up. So no matching jobs found, but that's because I don't know actually. Anyway, if you happen to be in India, you might want to use a different site. I don't know. I think I'm searching Hungary actually, so I need to fix that. I think there are Indian jobs on here. So this is a site that lists jobs basically, and you can upload your CV to jobserve.com, and there are other sites like this, as I say. And once you've uploaded your CV, you can make it searchable by recruiters and employees. And at least in the UK, and I believe the US and Europe, most jobs that you get will be via an agency. So you'll be sending your CV to agencies, and hopefully they'll start contacting you, and they'll go to the employers, and they will find you a job and they will usually be paid by the employers themselves. So don't give money to the recruiter, obviously, that would be crazy. The employers will pay the recruiter. So you're gonna basically be approaching recruitment agencies, but you can do it all through a site like this one. So you can upload your CV to JobServe, and let's say you're looking for a Java job. So I'm going to search for Java in keywords, and I've got this set on some kind of annoying setting. Let's go to here, consider another country, and let's take, for example, here we've got a whole list of different countries here, and let's go to the United Kingdom just as an example, and here we go. And I don't know what other jobs there are there. Maybe this is a complete list, I don't know, of countries, I don't know. Anyway, so what I would do is I'd look, you can search for jobs within different salary brackets, and the different types of jobs here. It's good for permanent and contract, and usually you start off as a permanent person and you can become a contractor and make much more money after 2 or 3 years if you want. And you can sort these jobs by the latest one, so you can see the latest one that's come in rather than sorting by relevance. And what I do is I think by default it searches for jobs in the last 7 days, but I'd search every day. If I wanted a job, I'd search for jobs in here, and I'd sort them by the latest job so that I can just go down the list. And to start with, I just looked for all the jobs I possibly could that looked interesting, and by using 1 or 2 clicks I'd send off my CV. And if the form allows you to send some other information to the agency, sometimes it's worth putting a little note in there, or even emailing the agency as well through JobServe, because you can do that, and just explaining a bit more and just trying to come across as really enthusiastic or whatever. But the basic thing is keep looking at this site, and the first time you do it, just look for anything that could be appropriate. And if you haven't got the right skills or experience, consider positions like test positions or even data entry, but positions which could contain an element of computer programming, or which jobs where you could possibly automate certain things using computer programming, because you're just trying to look to get your foot in the door to start with. And even if you get a job that isn't a software development job, if it allows you to do any element of software development, or even in your existing job, if you have one maybe, then that gives you commercial experience, which then looks fantastic on your CV. So think around the kind of edges as well. And then once you've applied for everything you can that seems like it might be appropriate, I would say every day just search for the particular skills that you've learned or that you feel you know, and sort by the latest vacancy and look at all the ones that have come in that day. And it might take you a while to go through, but you'll get quicker and quicker as you get more practiced at it. And just spend like half an hour or an hour or two or more, I don't know, however long it takes, going through the latest jobs and applying for any that look appropriate. And I find for some reason often I don't hear anything back for like 2 weeks. It's like silent for 2 weeks. You'd think that the world had been destroyed in some sort of apocalypse for a couple of weeks, but then after that you'll tend to start getting calls from agencies, at least if your CV looks credible. And once they start calling you, that's a fantastic sign, because if they start calling you, you'll probably end up with a job if you just hang in there. And it might take a few weeks to get them to start calling you, but as long as your CV does look credible and you've got software, even if it's little programs at home that you develop, then they'll probably start calling you eventually. And hopefully you'll start getting interviews. And don't worry too much about the first interview. So you'll probably get calls after a few weeks, let's say at least a couple of weeks, and during that time I will be looking at this site every day and applying for anything that seems appropriate, and you keep doing that till you get a job, or at least that's my strategy anyway, and it's worked for me. And then they start calling you, and eventually hopefully you'll start getting interviews. And if some of the agencies are a bit snotty and they say, oh, you can't get a job without experience, or something like that, don't listen to them, because they all say this kind of thing, and in a way it's in their interest to discourage you, because then they're the only kind of connection that you have to getting a job. They don't want you contacting other agencies, but don't take any of this nonsense. If you want a job, like, learn to program and then just get one, and eventually I think you'll get one. So don't take any nonsense from these agencies, but of course be very nice to them, because they will help you, and most of them these days are very helpful. And eventually you'll start getting interviews, and then don't worry too much about a particular interview, because if you don't get it, don't be crushed by it or anything like that, because see it as a numbers game. The more interviews you get, the better you get at just talking and presenting yourself. Even if you find it very difficult at first and you're racked with nerves, you'll get better at it. So hang in there and see an interview as just experience, and relax, try to relax, and eventually you will hopefully get a job from doing that. So it's a numbers game. Make sure all your applications are quality applications and you're applying for stuff that you think you might get, and try your hardest at interviews. Try to be nice and present yourself well to the agents. Don't get discouraged, keep in there, but remember that it is a numbers game, and often a lot of people are applying for one job, but if you present yourself well, such is the demand for software developers, it's ever increasing, it seems. You will get one eventually if you're persistent enough, and if you even vaguely know your stuff at all. So that's kind of my strategy for finding work, which has always worked for me. And finally, I just want to tell you my own story, which may encourage you, I don't know. But I did a degree in physics, and I just got horribly discouraged with that degree, because I don't know, I just got sick of studying, and I don't really like being told what to do. I like being free and independent. And at one point I dropped out of my degree, and I said I moved into a tent, and I said I was going to go and look for gold in the hills of Scotland, and there is some gold there, honestly, but it's very difficult to find. Some people that I came across found a small speck, and my eyesight was so bad that I couldn't even see this alleged speck of gold. So anyway, to cut a long story short, I went back and tried to finish my degree, but I didn't have enough money, and I got the worst class of degree that you can get. So I had a degree in science, but I was living in a tent, and I had a terrible class of degree. I didn't know anything about computers either. Someone had taught me to send emails, and that was all I could do. And then a bit later, somehow it happened that I miraculously had a girlfriend in spite of living in a tent, and she said that she was going to buy a computer, and I said, like, why would you want to do that? Buy a word processor, they're much better. This was in 1997, I think. But she did buy a computer, and I had time on my hands because I didn't have a job, and I was actually applying for cleaning jobs and trying to do all kinds of things and having no luck even with those. And I started playing around with the computer, and I just got intrigued with its possibilities, and I thought if I could write a really good game, because I came across like QBasic, which was part of Windows back then, and I thought maybe I could write a game, a computer game, and sell it and make loads of money. And I kept trying to learn programming, and at first it was really, really difficult, and I had such trouble with basic concepts. I looked at so many different books, and I kept jumping around trying to learn this and that, and I kept thinking, oh, I should give this up, it's too hard. But I kept at it, and after a while things started to become gradually clearer, and after about a year or so from when I first started using a computer properly and trying to learn to program, I actually got a job in it. I came across a job. It was advertised as a trainee position, but I had also, I think, as far as I remember, I think I had interviews as well. Yeah, I did, for other jobs that weren't trainee positions. So if you're just persistent, you can get some junior position eventually. And I was asking for the minimum amount of money that I thought I could live on, which at the time was £8,000, which was absolutely nothing. You have to really struggle, really try hard to find a full-time job in the UK, even in 1996, that paid as little as £8,000. And I remember one person who interviewed me said he thought that I was asking for 18 and it was a typo, and he thought that that was rather a lot of money. But eventually I got this job, which is a bit rubbish, but I left it after 8 months, and because I got a better job, because by then I'd got commercial experience, so I got a job that paid more, and I carried on like that for some time really. I did stay in one job for 6 years, but to be honest with you, I never liked working in an office, and most of my colleagues did like working in offices. They enjoyed the job, but I didn't, because I'm obviously interested in computers, but I don't like just sitting there and being told what to do. I don't like sitting there all day, or I don't like the stuffiness of an office. After a while I pushed myself to become a contractor, even though actually, like, for me it was nerve-wracking, and I had a lot of trouble. Just I'm not naturally a confident person, and I didn't know if I could even, to start with, I didn't know if I could even get a job. I had such trouble presenting myself, but I did, and later on I became a contractor, and that multiplied my income by like 2.5 times. And actually I quit a job which I really disliked strongly, and that I'd done for 3 months, and I tried to make a living selling paintings on eBay, but I got sick of that. It was really hard to do, and I can't really paint anyway, which didn't help. And then I got a job as a contractor, which made me buckets of cash really, and I did a few different contracts, and my last one was for AT&T in Holland actually. And then finally, now the great thing about software development is that, believe it or not, and sometimes it is hard to really believe, there's so many opportunities if you have software development skills, not only for working for other people but working for yourself. And it took me a long time to work out how to do it and to realize this, but you can actually just work for yourself in a variety of ways. developing software. It's just that, again, it takes a little time, a little research, and some effort. And after I'd been contracting for a while, I thought I'd saved up some cash, and I thought, I'm really sick of this now. By then I'd done like 13 years of working in offices, and employers were pleased with my work, and I think I was pretty good at it, but I wasn't happy, and I wanted to work for myself, so I quit. I said, okay, where's the town in Europe where I'm legally allowed to live, where my money will go the furthest, and where I can enjoy being in a big town? And that, I decided, was Budapest, which I knew nothing about, in Hungary. So I moved here, and then I started giving lessons. First I was teaching English as a foreign language. I just put ads in the local newspapers, and people came to me for conversation practice. And this, I was someone who for a long time could barely talk to another human being, so I was kind of improving through my experience of being a contractor and working and all this kind of thing. And then I thought, okay, I'll teach computer programming. And I remember someone saying to me, is that something that people do, teach computer programming through the internet, which is my idea? And I said, no, I just thought of it, and I really didn't know if it could work. But as with teaching English via private advertisements, I didn't think that would work, but I was forced to do it because I didn't have any income at that time, and I either had to do something or go back to the office, which I didn't want to do. So then I started teaching computer programming, and of course I'd taken a massive drop in salary to do this, but I was a lot happier when it worked. It was like a miracle. I was amazed. And I was teaching computer programming via Skype, and then I started making YouTube videos to promote my website, caverprogramming.com. And then someone said to me, well, you can sell subscriptions to these videos. So then I started selling videos about computer programming, and that's what I'm doing now. So if you go to caverprogramming.com, I've got a completely free course on Java programming there, as I think I said maybe, and one on Java multi-threading, and I've got paid courses on Android, Swing and web development, and they all have some free videos in them. And again, this has increased my income again. My income's increasing all the time, which I'm very happy about. And the more I get into it, the more I realise that there are so many things you can do with software, and actually with the internet in general. There's so much opportunity for making money. It's just that if you start looking into it from scratch, you meet all these scammy people who are telling you to do this or do that and make £500 an hour or something, and it actually takes a while to build things up. And there are genuine people in amongst the scam artists telling you how to do stuff, and I just managed to find my own way, and I've used the skills that I've got in programming now to make a living completely for myself. So I'm completely independent. I could live wherever I wanted, really. I do what I want. I'm working on these videos for like an hour a day or something, and the rest of the time I'm doing other stuff. So that's my story. And if you're at the point where you're maybe studying programming a little bit and you're wondering if it's worthwhile, then if you enjoy the programming, it's definitely worthwhile. And if you don't enjoy it, if you don't like programming, then I would say look into using the internet to make money other ways, because there are lots of ways you can make money through the internet. Okay, so that's it from me, and check out my other tutorials. And I was just thinking, like, if you do want to make money some other way on the internet, I'm no expert on that. I was trying to think if there's any URL that I could give you, and I came across a good site recently that was pretty good, and I'm struggling to remember the name of it, which is why I'm hesitating, but I'll give you this URL just in case it's useful to you. Where are we? If I could get the right browser window here, it will help. Here we go. There's one called something like Simple Passive Income or something like that. Let's passive income simple. The guy mentions his smart passive income. Yeah, so if you aren't interested in programming and yet you've watched this video, I don't know why, and you want to make money through the internet, or even if you are, there's a lot of good tips I've found in this blog. It looks a bit sort of, by European standards, it's a bit kind of it's very American, and you think, is this guy a scam artist? But I've listened to like the first 10 of his podcasts and they're really, really good, and I do wish I'd known a lot of this stuff to start with. So check out smartpassiveincome.com, but first of all check out caverprogramming.com. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial, and until next time, happy coding.